Good evening and welcome to the July 17th, 2024 Mercer Island Arts Council regular video meeting. The time is now 5:30. I'm Elizabeth Mitchell, Chair of the Arts Council. Tonight's Arts Council meeting is in person and using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The video of this meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this week. City staff, liaisons to the Arts Council, and other panelists are also participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members may be listening to the meeting by telephone or online. Additionally, the city has opened up the community center to provide public space for viewing and participating in the meeting. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us tonight. Councilors, please ensure that your microphones are turned on for the roll call. Will city staff please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Harrington.
Here.
Councillor Rajagopal.
Here.
Councillor Young. Councillor Gibson.
Here.
Councillor Scone.
Here.
Vice Chair Becker.
Here.
Chair Mitchell.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. City staff, is there anyone who signed up for appearances that wishes to address the Arts Council?
Yes, Chair. We have two members of the community.
Individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone, via Zoom, or in person at Mercer Island Community and Event Center. Provided, however, they registered their desire to speak with the city admin staff by 4 p.m. today. Our city admin staff will call on you by name when it is your turn to speak. When it is your turn to address the Arts Council, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Staff will provide you with a 10-second notice when your time is about to expire. Once your time has expired, I will thank you for your comments and move to the next speaker or the first item of business. City staff, please admit the first speaker.
Jane Meyer-Brom, please approach the podium.
Thank you. I'm Jane Meyer-Brom, 7420 North Mercer Way. I want to thank you for your work on the Arts Council. It's very important work that I think is often underappreciated. I never served on the Arts Council, but when I was on the City Council, I was the liaison to the City Council, and that's the post I wanted. I was so pleased to be the liaison, and I learned a lot. I am an art lover. I'm not a practitioner, but I'm an art appreciator. And when it comes to art, I can't do it, but I love it. I'm here as co-president of the Mercer Island Historical Society, an art appreciator and longtime Mercer Island resident. I remember when the street names were inlaid in the big street redo in 1992 and 94, or from 92 to 94. It was a celebration of place, a way to honor the original street names that were titled after the names of early Mercer Island settlers. It was an artful way to recognize the early settlers and remember their legacy. Mercer Island has a fascinating history, and the community we need to educate the community and remind people about that whenever possible. If you think about it, there are very few art installations on the island that reference history. Combining art and history, we don't do much of that on the island, so that's why these inlays were important. I am sorry to understand that the street names cannot remain where they are, but I would like to see the Arts Council postpone deaccessioning them and vote for option 3 in your packet. In addition, while I realize there are certainly expenses associated with salvaging the bronze inlays, in the spirit of reusing, recycling, and repurposing, I would urge that the bronze letters be saved if at all possible, perhaps given to an art school, melted down for repurposing. It would be a travesty to see them dumped in a landfill. I'm going to pass out pages from the Mercer Island history which explain the ideas behind the street art project and the other inlay items in the streets as well. Thank you for your service to the community, and I would urge you to continue to look for ways that art can combine with history to tell the story of Mercer Island. I'm going to pass these out.
Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. We really appreciate your input.
Thank you, and thank you
insight.
for your work.
Thank you.
Our second public appearance is Terry Mormon.
My name's Terry Mormon, and I've lived here for 45 years. And Jane's a little ahead of me. I got the history of the street inlays names and why they are, why we did them and why, when. I have to tell you that this whole project has brought back a lot of memories. And I don't want to sound like your mothers, but I was there when they did it. Without getting too deep in the weeds, the town center was a mess after the new I-90 construction. Businesses were suffering. Fortunately, there was federal money to redo and upgrade the streets, but it was yet another project that would impact the town center and the businesses. Because of that, the city actively involved the businesses and the Chamber of Commerce in the project planning, which is why I have this history. I was the executive director from way back when. The federal funds required multimodal transportation options, so it was decided that there would be a ring-like traffic pattern for the town center. 78th would have a planted median and be pedestrian-friendly. 80th and 77th would be more open, and there would be a bike path on 77th, which would make it multimodal. I have to tell you that I learned more about street construction, terms like multimodal and federal rules than any poli-sci major ever needs to know. We met every Friday morning at 8:30 at the chamber. City staff, business owners, anybody that was affected by the project could come. One morning, we even had cold pizza from Roberto's. The project was hard on the businesses. Block by block, the streets were torn up to lay cable, pipes, anything that needed to go in the grounds before the streets were repaved and the sidewalk work started. We tried to do things that would help the businesses with wide sidewalks and sidewalk aprons, which are the ones on the corners that are broad. There's one on 76th. The aprons were put specifically to encourage sidewalk sales and other business-friendly activities. 30 years later, they came very handy when we had the COVID thing. At the urging of Phil Flash, who was president of the Historical Society at the time and a really persistent guy, we seriously considered renaming the streets after the original settlers at the time. Those were the days when everything was printed, phone books, business cards, maps. There wasn't anything instantaneous. The impact and the cost of renaming the streets that would have had on the businesses was the reason we didn't do it. But everybody agreed that the original street names needed to be somehow memorialized. The compromise was the street name inlays. Now they need to be removed. We wish they didn't, but it seems inevitable. As we said in the email to you from the Historical Society, we would like to be sure that there is a process started to honor our original settlers and build on the island's
10
history
seconds.
through art placed in site-appropriate spaces before the inlays are deaccessioned and erased from the public rolls. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to speak. Again, we really appreciate hearing from both of you and getting your perspective. So, if there are no further appearances, we'll move on to the first item of business. The first item on the agenda is the staff liaison report and planning schedule update. Welcome, Katie Herzog, Recreation Supervisor and Staff Liaison.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome to the July 17th Staff Liaison Report. We will get our presentation up. Okay. So we're going to start off with a little recap of our weekend. We are still raving and recovering from a really fun day. We started down at 78th with the parade. We had over 36 entries, plus all of our city vehicles, fire trucks, everything to wrap up the parade. Really great turnout, really hot day where we moved to Mercer Park. As you can see, we had a foam party, live music, circus acts, community groups, sponsors, and yes, our Arts Council Chair, Elizabeth Mitchell, is at the lower left. She did face painting with her daughter and had a line the full day. So thank you, Elizabeth, for that. We then moved to Luther Burbank, where we had live music, food trucks, some entertainment, and a really fantastic fireworks show. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors of this year's event. Really wonderful turnout of sponsors and a really fun day. We think was had by all. We're getting a lot of good feedback and our city staff had a lot of fun. All right. And the fun continues. Mostly Music in the Park also started last week. We had a great band. We're estimating over 500 people came out to the park for another hot evening. We had a food truck, an ice cream vendor, and we will have another band tomorrow night and continue on Thursday evenings through August 22nd. Please come out and join us for some of these great bands. And thank you to our sponsors of this event as well. Shakespeare in the Park, as a reminder, has started in Luther Burbank at the amphitheater. They have shows that run through August 4th. Visit their full schedule. They're typically Thursday through Sunday, but they do have other locations, so it's not consistent. And thank you to 4Culture for your sponsorship in Shakespeare in the Park. And then going back a little bit, on June 19th, we held Juneteenth at Mercerdale in partnership with the high school's Black Student Union. It was kind of the kickoff to our summer weather. We had a really hot day, really great attendance, live music, the high school drill team and jazz ensemble performed. And the high school Black Student Union did such a wonderful job with their organizing. And as you may remember, the weekend prior to Juneteenth was not great weather, and we had to reschedule Pride in the Park, which was unfortunate, but we do have a new date of Saturday, August 24th, where we are planning all the same great activities, live music, games. I hope everyone can come down for Pride in the Park and the Roo Paws Puppy Parade and Costume Contest. Currently, the indoor gallery has Myval's Junior Art Show, which will run through August 17th. Last Friday was the award reception, which was well attended. And as you can see, some awards were given out to our junior artists. And last but not least, our summer camps are up and running. It's been really great to see a lot of kids here at the community center and out in our parks. Camps will run through August, so please visit our webpage here. A lot of space is still available, so help us spread the word if you know anyone still looking for summer camps. And with that, that concludes our report.
Thank you so much, Katie. The next item of regular business is to review and consider approving the minutes from the April 17th, 2024 regular meeting, the May 20th, 2024 special meeting, and the June 16th, 2024 special meeting. Counselors, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion by Daniel and a second by JB. Counselors, please turn on your microphones, and will city staff please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair. Counselor Scone,
Approve.
Counselor Young, Counselor Harrington,
Approve.
Counselor Gibson,
Approve.
Counselor Rajagopal,
I was not on board, so abstain.
Vice Chair Becker,
Approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Approve.
Thank you,
The-
Chair.
Thank you. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. The third item on the agenda is chair and vice chair elections. So tonight, the Arts Council will appoint a new chair and vice chair by utilizing the following process to elect new officers as stated in the bylaws. Place a motion to elect chair and vice chair on the agenda. Take nominations for the position of the chair from the floor. Nominations do not require a second vote, and if no further nominations, the chair declares nominations closed. Voting takes place in the order nominations are made. If there is only one nomination, board members will vote on that nomination by a voice vote. If there is more than one nomination, each will be voted on separately by a roll call vote of the members present. Once a nominee receives a simple majority vote, the nominee is declared elected to the position. If none of the nominees receive a majority vote, nominations are requested again, and the process is repeated until a candidate receives a majority vote. The process will be repeated for vice chair. I'll now open the floor for nominations for the position of chair. Please raise your hand if you would like to make a nomination for chair. Daniel.
I will move or whatever we're saying to suggest that Chair Mitchell repeat as chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Do we go ahead and do a roll call vote? Yeah, okay. Staff, please conduct a roll call vote for the nominee.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Becker,
Approve.
Councillor Scone,
Approve.
Chair Mitchell,
Approve.
Councillor Harrington,
Approve.
Councillor Gibson,
Approve.
Councillor Rajagopal,
Approve.
Councillor Young. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm supposed to congratulate myself, which is weird. So moving on, I will now open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair. Raise your hand if you'd like to make a nomination for vice chair.
I'll nominate Daniel Becker.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations? Staff, please.
Wait.
Oh, sorry. Did you have your hand up? Yes.
I would like to nominate Councillor Harrington.
Okay. So this one is going to be different. So we are gonna do a simple majority vote. And I am going to have, oh, first, are there any others? Okay, then staff, can you conduct a roll call vote for the nominees?
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is a roll call vote for Vice Chair Becker to remain as Vice Chair. Councillor Gibson,
Approve.
Chair Mitchell,
Approve.
Councillor Scone,
Approve.
Councillor Harrington,
Approve.
Vice Chair Becker,
Approve.
Councillor Rajagopal.
Well, okay. Approve.
It's okay. I won't be offended, I promise.
Yeah.
Does that, if that's a majority vote, we don't need to do a second roll call, correct? Yes, all right. Well, congratulations, Vice Chair Becker. The new officers will now continue their respective roles. And we can go ahead and move on to the fourth item of business. Wonderful. The next item of business is next steps for downtown streetscapes, the street name inlays. And for that, we're going to welcome Sarah Bluvis, CIP Project Manager. Welcome, Sarah.
Good evening, Arts Council. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm having a little trouble with my earbuds tonight, but hopefully they'll get us through. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can I get a thumbs up that you all can see this? Terrific. Okay. So I'm here for two items tonight. The first item is to discuss next steps for the street name inlays, which are part of the Downtown Streetscapes public art installation in Town Center. We talked a little bit about this installation back in May during our special meeting. The street name inlays, as you also heard during public appearances, will be impacted by some construction coming up this summer. So we need to determine a path forward for how to either deaccession the series or figure out another next step. So for this discussion, I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the street name inlays project. Then I'll give some information about the ADA transition plan implementation, which is driving the impacts to this installation. Then we'll talk about those impacts. We'll review the potential recommendations that were included in your packet. I also received a handful of questions from Arts Council members and the community following the release of the packet. So I will provide the responses to those questions for the public record, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So first, what are the street name inlays? And your two community members who provided public appearances tonight really summed up what this project is. And how impactful it has been in the community. So thank you to Jane Brom and Terry Moorman for coming out tonight. This project is part of the Downtown Streetscapes installation, which was created by artist Ellen Salad. Fun fact, it was actually the first public art commission she ever received. Ellen has done a ton of other public artworks around the region, and so it's really exciting to know that we were her first stop. The street name inlays in particular are installed on 77th and 78th Avenues Southeast. They were installed during major town center street reconstruction in the early 90s. And they feature the original names of 7 downtown streets, which were named after early Mercer Island families. At the street corners that are included in the installation, there are 2 bronze names inlaid at the base of the curb ramps that mark the original intersections. So here on the screen, Tallman and Gilpin, and I have my notes to make sure, that's the northeast corner of Southeast 28th Street and 78th Avenue Southeast. Cable and Gilpin is the southwest corner of Southeast 27th and 78th Avenue. And then Helen and Cable is northwest corner of Southeast 27th Street and 77th Avenue Southeast. So the inlays are bronze plate letters. They're about 4.5 inches tall and about 0.375 inches thick, each letter. The way they were installed, so the last letters were welded to a bronze framework. And then that whole framework was placed in the ground, and the entire intersection name was secured to a blockout, which is basically a frame for concrete installation. And then they were filled with set grout. So shifting gears a little bit to talk about the ADA transition plan. So this plan was adopted in 2022, and it identifies and guides the implementation of necessary accessibility improvements across the island. So it's a huge plan, hundreds of pages. There was an audit conducted of all of our facilities for ADA compliance, recommendations for how to improve those facilities, hence the transition element of the plan. In 23 and 24, the implementation has been focused on town center. That's in large part in connection to the forthcoming light rail station. So we want to make sure that our facilities are accessible before folks are using the light rail to come on and off the island. And our transportation engineer oversees implementation. So she is the project manager for the capital project we're going to talk a little bit about next. If anyone is interested in checking out the ADA transition plan, I also have a copy of it at my desk. If you ever want to stop by Luther and thumb through it, it's just found at mercerisland.gov/ADA. So the capital project in play with this installation is SP0118. Has the very memorable name of ADA Transition Plan Implementation. And this year, as I mentioned, we are focused on town center streets. In summer 2024, that includes replacing the curb ramps, adjacent curbs and gutters, and sidewalks at the 11th Street corners identified on the map on your screen. So 8 of those street corners, and you should see them all circled now, include street name inlays. And so they will be impacted. They do need to be removed during construction to accommodate the new warning strips known as truncated domes, those yellow strips that kind of look like they have buttons on them. The other curb ramps with street name inlays will be renovated or retrofitted during future CIP projects, which prompted this conversation between staff starting last year, knowing that not only would there be impacts this summer, but eventually all of the street name inlays would be impacted. So knowing that, I worked with our transportation engineer to figure out some options for considering what to do with the street name inlays. So the first element was talking with Ellen Salad, the artist. I met with her last August, really to talk about, if we recited these pieces, what would that look like to her? Does she have ideas for how we might re-envision the existing pieces in another location? Really just an exploratory conversation, and also to get her take on if we had to deaccession these pieces from the overall downtown streetscapes installation, how she as the artist would feel about that. So ultimately, Ellen did not recommend reciting the existing pieces to a different location. They are very place specific. If you have experienced them, you're standing on a street corner waiting for the light to change, and you really need to be in the place in order to really experience the original intent and impact of the pieces. She did support deaccessioning the series if an alternative isn't identified. Ellen mentioned, that art in the public realm, it does have a lifespan. So she was, supportive of whatever decision the city and the Arts Council need to make. But she also provided a couple of suggestions that led me and our transportation engineer to pursue some next steps. So her first suggestion was to develop a new project with salvaged pieces that builds on a response to the context and history of the current installation. So I included a photo of an installation that Ellen Salad did many years ago for the Renton Transit Center. It's called The River, and it's meant to evoke a river, I think it was the Black River, that effectively disappeared when the lake levels were changed, and I think at the turn of the 20th century. And so there's no river there anymore, but part of her art project was to denote that place in some way. So they installed this piece, even though not really in the location of the river originally, but in a general area of where the river was. So this is an example of a place-based artwork that was installed in a different location. Ellen had the idea of, if we were able to salvage the pieces that would be impacted by construction, perhaps you could reformat them in such a way where, maybe the inlays, the names are now in a circle, that it's installed in a plaza somewhere like at Mercer Park or another area close to town center that kind of reference the cyclical nature of time and history, give the street names new life, but doesn't necessarily attach them to the original corners. That was just an idea. Of course, if we were to undertake a project, either trying to salvage some of the existing street name inlays or a completely new project, we would of course go through an artist selection process to figure that out. And then her second suggestion was, if we were able to salvage the pieces that'll be impacted, donate them to a fine arts school like the Pratt Fine Arts Center to be melted down and used for new projects. And I think both of the community members who spoke tonight mentioned that as well. So with that input from the artist, I moved on to working with the transportation engineer to see what would actually be feasible within the ADA design. So our engineer went back to her design consultant and they identified kind of really two options for how to salvage the pieces that are going to be impacted during construction this summer. So the first idea was to remove them in a solid concrete block. So what that would look like is effectively saw cutting each intersection marker, so cutting out the entire concrete block and removing it as one piece that would then be stored somewhere. This is not necessarily time intensive, although I do think it would take a fair amount of care and precision in order to remove, in part because you would have to make sure that the planar portion, or kind of that evenly spaced portion of the artwork, is maintained. And then the slabs, while they would be very heavy, they would also be fragile because they're not honestly that big. So there is potential that they could still be broken or destroyed in some way. We didn't get a cost estimate for this option. The design consultant said, you know, at the end of the day, it would probably be less expensive to just fabricate new bronze letters, and if we were removing them as concrete blocks, we would still have the kind of issue of where would we store them, these giant concrete blocks, and then what would we do with them in the future? They presumably would not be able to be reinstalled as the concrete block. We'd probably still need them to be chipped out letter by letter. So they did provide cost estimates and more information about what that would look like as part of this construction project. So to remove the individual letters, they would have to chip each letter out of the concrete and then clean and store it. They'd be limited to one street corner at a time to maintain pedestrian circulation, and this would be very time and labor intensive. And they broke it out basically, I would say 5 to 7 hours per intersection it would take, or per corner. It would take other equipment and 2 people to work on it. And then we would have the same element of figuring out where to store them and then eventually figuring out what to do with them. All told, they estimated that per intersection, this would cost about $2,500. And so for, I think it's 4 intersections that are impacted during construction, that'd be $10,000 at least. This would need to be funded by the 1% for Art and Public Places Fund, because this funding was not accounted for. This safe removal was not accounted for in the original capital project budget. So after that, some time passed and we presented kind of an initial look at what it would look like, or what a potential staff recommendation would be to the Arts Council, which would be originally was going to be to deaccession the series. And then the pieces would be removed over time as part of future capital projects. But I met with the Historical Society last week. They reached out after they learned about this project and shared more information about what was happening. They discussed the significance of the street name inlays and really that lack of historical representation in the public art collection. You know, we have a lot of works in the public art collection that touch on history in varying ways, but the works in Town Center are really the only ones that highlight a very specific history, that early founding of Mercer Island. And I definitely agree with the Historical Society about, you know, that lack of representation impacts future generations' ability to connect with the island. They were also concerned about the lack of notice to the Historical Society about possible deaccession, and that was totally my fault. I should have connected with the Historical Society last year during my fact finding, and I didn't. So I am very happy and thankful that they reached out when they did, because it did inspire me too as a staff person to kind of rethink what my recommendations to you all for next steps would be. And then you all should have received a letter from the Historical Society board. I think that came through last night. And like Terry and Jane, who spoke tonight, the letter really supports developing a new project to highlight island history and the town center. So we can talk a little bit more about that. This Mercer Island Reporter screenshot that you see on your screen is from 1995 after the new construction of the streets was completed and the new pieces were installed. This piece that you can see, the kind of medallion, is called the Conveyance of Time. And this digital version of the reporter is made available by the Historical Society because they've done a lot of work to digitize past issues of the reporter, and community members can access them for free. So thank you to the Historical Society for that as well. Okay, so next steps for the street name inlays. I'm gonna kind of talk about recommendation for current instruction or construction that's happening this summer. Then we'll talk about kind of the potential recommendations that were included in your packet. Then I'll go through the questions that I received to hopefully provide more information in making a decision, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So just a few more slides. So SP 0118 is scheduled to begin construction later this month. Based on the input from the artist and the cost and kind of logistics of removing the inlays that are impacted by construction, staff recommended that the CIP project move forward without salvaging the impacted street name inlays. I think we can still talk about that a little bit, what that might look like if the Arts Council was very interested in either salvaging or trying to recycle them in some way through construction. There's probably still a little bit of opportunity or wiggle room to address that. But then there's also still opportunity to address the other street name inlays that are installed in Town Center. So there's 21 inlays total in Town Center. 8 of them will be removed as part of construction this summer, which leaves 13 kind of up for grabs and further exploration of what we may want to do with them. And the image here that you see on your screen, these are the truncated domes. I'll talk a little bit more about them because I did receive a question about them. This is installed at the northwest corner of Southeast 29th Street and 77th Avenue Southeast. And this is provided to show you what actually the removal of one inlay looks like already in practice. There used to be a street name inlay here, and I believe in 2017 or 2018, it was removed by our city right-of-way rather than replaced at the base of the curb. They removed it completely. So we already have an example of what this could look like in the Town Center right now. So then those potential recommendations included in your packet, you may choose to recommend that the street name inlays be deaccessioned. So this is just the street name inlays, not any of the other pieces that are part of the overall downtown streetscapes installation. You could recommend further exploration for salvaging pieces during future capital projects. Could recommend that a new project highlighting historic street names be developed. Or you could recommend some combination of those options or a different recommendation altogether, depending on the discussion tonight. And then quickly, just to run through the questions that were received. So thank you to Arts Council members and community members who provided questions. First, so Exhibit 2 in your packet included images of the impacted street corners and their current configuration. And it was noted that some of, or virtually all of the street corners that are impacted this summer by construction already have the truncated domes. So what's up with that? So these curb ramps were upgraded by the developer of the 77 Central Complex, that mixed use facility around, I think, in between 77th and 78th on Southeast 27th. When it was built in the mid-2000s. So at the time, the city required the developer to make street frontage improvements. Part of that, I believe, is the really cool kind of plaza area that is adjacent to the outdoor gallery at the north end of 78th Avenue Southeast, as well as other improvements along the curbs. So you can see that truncated domes were added, and we required the developer to reinstall the street name inlays on those impacted corners. But through the audit for the ADA transition plan, we learned that none of those curbs actually comply with ADA. And the images on your screen show how. So it's I would say maybe a small change, but a pretty significant one for the effectiveness of these truncated domes. So on the top, the corner that still has street name inlays and then the domes installed, you can see that the domes are not installed directly adjacent to the roadway. And these domes are really designed to give sight impaired folks a heads up that they're entering a roadway. So, you walk over it, you can feel it, you can hear it. And it's really, they're most effective and most compliant when the truncated domes are located directly adjacent to the roadway. So you can see the photo on the bottom. That's actually the street corner that was upgraded by our right-of-way team many years ago. You can see that the domes are directly adjacent to the roadway. So if someone were to go over this and they were sight impaired, they would know, okay, I'm done with the domes and now I'm entering the roadway. The street name inlays installed at the base of the curb ramp will have to be removed in order to maintain that accessibility for all abilities. Another question, and this one actually came from the Historical Society. Did the city consider reciting the impacted street name inlays somewhere else on the sidewalk on the corner? So example, at the top of the curb ramp or closer to the a building that might be adjacent to that corner. And I talked with our transportation engineer about this, and there's really a couple of design challenges related to this. So first, the length of the curb ramp really depends on the length of the sidewalk and the slopes leading into the roadway. So it's not necessarily consistent across each corner. It really depends on the right-of-way boundaries and just kind of the lay of the land in terms of slopes. So we wouldn't be able to implement a reciting consistently across the corners. Additionally, right-of-way space is very limited at most of these corners. The required ADA design really pushes the ramps closer to the right-of-way edge, which leaves little to no room for street name inlays at the top of the curb ramps. And, there was potential or could have been opportunity to work with private property owners, but typically with projects like this, we aim to stay within the right of way unless we really have to encroach on a different, a non-city owned property. A couple more. So can you clarify the number of street name inlays? Yes, your packet had a typo. So there are 21 street name inlays currently installed in Town Center. There was, I believe, at one point it said in 23 or 23 was included in the packet. 23 was the number of inlays originally intended on the installation. I know for a fact 22 were installed. I'm not sure what happened to that last one, but currently there's 21. 8 will be impacted by construction this summer and 13 will not be impacted this summer. Can you clarify the construction timing? So our transportation engineer is working on the construction contract right now, and we anticipate that the construction of the curb ramp improvements will begin later this month. And then when will the remaining 13 corners with street name inlays be upgraded? There's no set timeline for future retrofits or reconstruction, but the ADA transition plan will continue to focus on Town Center for implementation in the near future, including on, like I mentioned before, pedestrian facilities that are really connected in some way to the light rail opening. So there's still time to evaluate opportunities for salvaging the remaining street name inlays. Ideally, we would receive direction if the city or if the Arts Council is interested in trying to salvage any of those ones. Receive that direction tonight so I can start working with our transportation engineer and other folks in our streets team to make sure that we are factoring that into the actual capital project budgets going forward. And then finally, can you clarify the timing of deaccessioning for each potential recommendation? So if the Arts Council chose recommendation number 1, which is just the straight recommendation to deaccession the street name inlay series, that recommendation would be sent to City Council for approval later this year. And then what that would look like is street name inlays would just be deinstalled and disposed of during future capital projects. So there would likely be inlays still in the ground even after the project has been deaccessioned, but they would be removed as part of future projects. For recommendation number 2, deaccession for the street name inlays series would only be sent to City Council after further exploration of salvaging pieces is complete, and if the Arts Council provided the direction to do so. So I think the sequencing for that is you recommend or ask staff to continue exploring how to salvage pieces. We would continue doing that. We would come back to you later with our findings and potential recommendation or a request for further direction. And then from there, if a result was that the Arts Council decided that, you know, they wanted to deaccession the project following that exploration, then we would set in motion the steps of sending that recommendation to the City Council. It's better for project purposes and for just sort of ongoing maintenance of the inlays and being able to support the inlays. So like a future project with the inlays, being able to use 1% funds on it. It's just better for the project to stay on the books until we know for sure that the series will no longer be a part of the collection. And that goes the same for recommendation number 3. So if you all decided that you wanted to move forward with developing a public art project that highlights historic street names or other town center, Mercer Island history is requested, then the deaccession recommendation would go to City Council at the same time that we would go to Council to request approval for that project. So really the only deaccessioning that would happen kind of directly after this meeting is if you all voted to accept recommendation number 1, and then we as staff would move forward with the next steps to deaccession the street name inlay series. So I'm going to stop there. I know that's a lot of information. A lot of it was in your packet, so hopefully this is all just a refresher, and I'm going to open it up for conversation and discussion. So back to you, Chair.
Thank you. That was really helpful. I would love to open up to the Arts Council and see what people's thoughts are. So I'm just going to start at the end with Councillor JP.
So is the ADA project just at the truncated domes, or does it extend into the sidewalk as well, or affect sidewalks elsewhere?
So it will extend into the sidewalk. I'm not sure. It's different for each corner, kind of based on, I think, what I had mentioned before about just the limitations of each corner. But in addition to kind of sidewalk improvements and the full curb ramp improvement, I believe that there's gutter improvements and other sort of adjacent. So it'll really be kind of the full street corner, not just that small area of the ramp entering the roadway.
I've got a handful, so do you want to just keep going?
Yeah.
Or should I
Did you have another question?
I've got a handful, so I can keep going, or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you might have answered this partially. You said it was infeasible to recite the inlays. But did you look at casting new bronze inlays that may fit or be sized to fit with the new project?
We did not. So based on the project budget for this project, I believe because it's a streets project, it likely has a 1% contribution. I'd have to go back and confirm that. But based on the project budget, the 1% contribution would have been very, very small. So that's something that we would have come back to the Arts Council for, and just based on the design needs for accessibility and kind of the logistics around incorporating a design really quickly for the street name inlays into the CIP project. We just ultimately decided to move more down the path of figuring out if we would either deaccession these or figure out a new project that isn't a bronze street or bronze sidewalk inlay.
Right. And then my last question was around just either within this project, or are there other projects that we're redoing sidewalks that may present opportunities to do inlays just in different locations, but maintain kind of the naming and the history of this?
Mhm. So there will be other projects related to the ADA transition plan implementation, both the curb ramps, but then I also think there's some sidewalk repairs happening. I believe originally this implementation project was supposed to impact many more of the inlays. I think it was supposed to hit 17 of the 21 that are still there, but it was slimmed down. The remaining 4 that were never a part of the project, they're on Southeast 32nd Street, I believe. There's 4 of them. And that project, there will be sidewalk improvements there, I think, coming up in the coming years. But beyond that, I mean, I would have to go back and look at, we're just in CIP planning right now. I believe the proposed CIP for the next 6 years goes to council in the fall. So we won't have a really good idea about upcoming projects until later this year, but it's definitely something we can keep our eye on, especially if you all determine you want to do a new project and you would prefer that it be inlay or inlay adjacent.
Yeah. So a couple statements on my end. I think I agree that we need to have kind of our history and story told in our art in the city. So I think something should be done. So whether that's new inlays in similar or even kind of mid-block or other areas, but if there's opportunities with the capital projects, I think that would be worth exploring. As it relates to salvage, I would rather see our funds go towards a new installation instead of just salvaging something to melt it down. So, yeah.
Thank you. We'll move on to you.
Yeah, I really only have one minor question for now, which is specifically on the salvaging and the recycling. Like, is the cost that you quoted for $2,500 an intersection, like that is for actually salvaging it for reuse? Like, that's not melting it down. I mean, I'm assuming that if we're just going to melt it down, we don't have to be quite so careful. It can be done for less. Like, what's the cost? Do we have any sense of the cost for getting them to a recyclable state?
I don't have a sense of that cost right now, but that is one thing that I feel like we might have a little bit of wiggle room on since the project has not moved into construction yet. So that if the Arts Council is interested in trying to at least salvage the pieces, or not salvage them, but recycle them either responsibly or recycle them in such a way that they can be reused by another institution, we can definitely explore that and figure out if it is really possible.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, my general opinion on it is it sounds like it's going to be cost prohibitive to like actually salvage these, as you've already said, to like reuse them and replace them. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment of wanting to recycle the pieces. I just am concerned about what the cost is going to be and like what's the actual environmental impact of, I mean, it's still pretty small. Like, are we taking this gigantic concrete pile and throwing most of it into the landfill, but then we're saving a tiny portion of it? And I think we just need, it's hard to say one way or the other on the cost for that. But I mean, generally speaking, I would personally be interested to see what the city can come back with in terms of other options to commemorate the street names. I mean, it doesn't have to be something that's in the ground. It could be something, I mean, you think you said we can't do it on a building because that's private property. It could be on the lampposts. It could be, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on that. And so, you know, if we go that route, I'd be interested to see having the city or the traffic engineer hopefully not spending like a ton of money on like perfect drawings before we can see it, but like giving us a general sense of what is even possible, if anything.
Thank you. I think for me, I am in, agreement with what the statements have already been made, that I'm very passionate about history and old things. And so I like the idea of honoring our history as an island. And so to find some way to do that, I think would be really great. That being said, what it sounds like the current state is that the best thing would be to to move forward with this project, make the ADA compliance happen. I think that safety is the #1 concern. But to find a way or a project in the future that really honors that history of Mercer Island. I think we already saw that, especially with the bronze inlays that are going to be installed at Luther Burbank, the project that Daniel and Suzanne worked on. I think that that was amazing. And the #1 thing, if you go back to that we got in feedback from the community, is that they do want to see more of the Mercer Island history displayed in our art. And so I think we have a real opportunity here to go to the city council and say, move forward with the project, make street corners safe, but we would like you to consider another project where we can incorporate that history from Mercer Island. And I think that's really important. So that's my however many cents I just put in about that. Suzanne?
Yeah, I guess I
always tried to recover or recycle or reuse and usually got burned by it. It always ends up being more expensive. And I was just looking at bronze letters here and, on the internet, and they're only about $80 a piece. So you could do a whole new signage. So I just wanted to add that. I think we're doing our 6-year plan. The first tenant criteria that we did highlight history. And so I think that we need to look at this situation with the new 6-year plan. And I think we've already identified that history is one of our most important criteria that we're going to look at when we do new art projects. So I guess I would say that's where I'm coming from. And I think we'll have opportunity to honor this work that's been done in the past in a way that is cost effective and works with projects in the future. So that's what I'd be leaning for.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think I also agree that, preserving the island's history and expanding everyone's knowledge about it. I don't think there's a whole lot of knowledge about the history of the island, even among Islanders, is something that we really need to focus on. And if I may ask, Chair Mitchell, were you referring to kind of we should adopt like the third option, that we should move on with the project, but then look at a possible new project that kind of is going in the direction of what the Historical Society recommended, or?
Yeah, I mean, that is my personal opinion, and I'm very glad that I'm not making this decision by myself and that everyone is weighing in, because I don't want to put that weight on my shoulders. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that moving forward with the deaccession would be the right thing to do to comply with ADA, but absolutely that within that we continue to look for a new project where we can honor the history of Mercer Island. And obviously, even outside of this direct project, I think that we've made it clear that that's our focus and our goal as an arts council moving forward in general. And I think that that's, I believe, held by everyone. I would also, if you have more, Jonathan, that's fine. But I also want to give Irene, our online counselor, a chance to speak as well. So we'd love to hear from you if
If
you
I
were.
may, I agree with your opinion. I just want to get clarification on what you were supporting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Irene?
Hey, yeah, I first have a question. I think it's a very good question that about the whether the salvage for the melting down, that cost, how much will be? I think I'm interested to know. And I'm also interested to know whether there will be any source of funding. For example, like Mercer Island Historical Society or MIVO will chip in for any kind of salvage cost that may help for the for saving some memory. I think as an artist, I think the historical value of this piece is greater than the artistic value of this piece. So, and also the artist already said that if put this piece in another contest, the impact will be diminished. So I noticed she suggests that to salvage some pieces and create a new project in the new contest. I think because this is going to be a new design and a new project, I'm not sure whether the salvage costs will be justified. So, but if salvage costs will be low for just melting down and donate to the fine art institution, and I think I will support that. And for the third option, both Mercer Island Historical Society and the MIVO recommend to create a new art project. I think this is very meaningful. I support that too. But I would like to know more about the numbers of usage of the fund. And also whether we can get any other source of funding for this project. Maybe a new project can be both exciting and keep the memory. So if the budget allows, I will support that too.
Thank you. Sarah, do you want to speak to the budget part, or can I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Suzanne mentioned it already. You know, we are in the 6-year planning process for the Public Art Fund. So the way I would kind of envision this happening is if you all were interested or did decide to move forward with a new project that highlights Mercer Island history or the historic street names specifically, that we incorporate it into that work plan. And then you know, the funds the project budget would really be dictated by either the fund balance, or if you were interested in trying to fundraise from either other island groups or you know, pursue grants or something like that. That's also something we could look at to supplement. So I think really what would happen in terms of the budget and connection to the 6-year work plan is it'll include, we'll kind of look at like what the projections are based on what we think the capital projects will be over the next 6 years, more focused on the next 2 years, the next biennium 25 and 26, but out, you know, looking at the out years as well. And then that'll give us a rough idea of what we have to work with in the future, in addition to what we already have in the fund. I believe I'd have to go back and double check the number, but I do think that right now with everything that's committed, that's the public art restorations that are happening, our annual public art maintenance, and then the remainder of the project to complete the medallions. I think it's sitting right now at about $75,000. So I do anticipate some pretty significant contributions by the end of this year based on a lot of the capital projects that we have happening. And then also a huge portion of the medallions project will be effectively paid back once the waterfront project is through construction, because the way our fund works is the contribution is contributed to the fund after construction is complete. So I think that there, you know, through the work plan process, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about tonight, there are definitely going to be trade-offs that we'll have to make because we don't, you know, it's not a super significant fund. It's not like City of Seattle or anything like that. We're talking about small numbers, but I do think that there's possibility to do an impactful project that would highlight history in the town center, especially knowing, again, with the light rail opening and the anticipation of more people moving through and in and around town center, that there's real opportunity, especially in pedestrian facilities or areas, to highlight history. So I think we could figure out how to make it work if it was something that the Arts Council was really interested in doing.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you speaking to the fact that we would have to make decisions and choose. And I think that's an important thing. I, being an artist, work for a lot of different nonprofit organizations. And so I know what it means that you have to choose. You know, do I wish that I could afford all of these things for my nonprofit? Yeah, that'd be great, but I can't. So where do we make those decisions? So I think that's just something that we want to think about as an arts council, is that we don't have the same funding that City of Seattle or Bellevue maybe has. And where do we want to put that money? I think we've already said that there's a focus on history, and that we do want to do something to highlight and honor the founders, but does it need to be so focused on this specific project? Maybe not necessarily. So that being said, I would, may I have a motion to recommend next steps to staff for the street name inlay series?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion, and maybe it doesn't agree with what you guys are saying, because I would do the deaccession and I wouldn't put my time and effort and money into trying to salvage. I would say, Sarah, if there is some way that, you know, they take the jackhammer out, you know, and pop those bronze pieces out and send them to Gage Art Academy or something, absolutely. Or you recycle them and, you know, take them to the metal place and put it back in the city budget. I think that's great if you could look at that. But to try to cut it out, you know, and preserve it and store it, and it kind of makes me think of the Koval donation that they have given to us. And here, this wonderful, it's like a pergola type thing that,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we can't store it, we can't pay to take care of it, we don't have a way to reuse it. And here you are 10 years down the road, and it's a lost, you know, it just doesn't work. So I don't want to put money into trying to, you know, keep the integrity of the artwork. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just probably not feasible. But so I would go, that my recommendation is
Deaccession.
option number one, I think
Okay.
it is, and it just go ahead and take it out. And, you know, I think, as I say, we're doing the 6-year plan. One of our number one tenets is history.
Mhm.
And I'll just kind of give a little vision. I mean, you hear me always talking about the Greta Hackett Walk Parkway. I would love to see these things repeated in that parkway. So, you know, we have this beautiful sidewalk that now you're walking down and you see these street names, you know, kind of the same thing that you've done, but maybe they're more visible and more part of a bigger installation.
Mhm.
They're not just being missed as I'm trying to, you know, not get run over by a car. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and so that's where I'm coming from. That's my motion.
Thank you for your motion. I'm going to ask for a second in a minute, but I do want to say that I agree with you. I think that I didn't know the significance of the names on the sidewalk, and that there is potential, and we would of course bring an artist in. But, you know, I picture something sort of like a labyrinth, or, you know, like the images that Sarah shared with us, that I think that there is great potential. So I almost feel like we're asking two separate questions here. We're talking about the deaccession, and then the focus for history is already in our work plan. So I'm going to say, is there a second to Suzanne's motion?
Suzanne, would you be able to put your motion out there again that we could capture
Well, I
it?
think it was just what Sarah had as it's her number one option on the slide up there. It was just deaccession. I can't say that word.
I can't say it either.
And with, you
So
know,
the
without the
first one,
effort
okay.
of trying to preserve, except I guess I did add the part that if you could, you know,
So sort of a hybrid.
so
of
I
one
would
and
say
three,
if practical.
right?
And
Sarah, could you put your slide up? Thanks.
so I would say if it's part of the normal demolition process, that those can be pulled out, then absolutely. But we're not going to come in with a saw cut and, you know, a crane and, you know, try to lift them a 500-pound block out.
And I believe the artist had said that the actual amount of brass is not that much, and that it wouldn't necessarily be worth it.
No,
So to clarify, you are going with just deaccession, but not adding on
There was another slide that said,
Was it this one or is it the? is it
okay,
the-
they recommend the street lane and be, yeah, number
Mhm.
one, recommend that they be, the inlays be de-accessioned, period.
So could I propose that we vote, if there is a second, that we first vote on whether or not to de-assess this current work, and that we could then take a second vote on
The
if we
salvage.
want to, well, actually, I was thinking more to recommend a new project highlighting historic street names or just highlighting history. So could we do two separate votes? Does that sound reasonable to everyone? Yes? So can I have a second to the deaccession?
Second.
Excellent. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. And so right now, we are going to do a roll call vote on whether or not to deaccession. I think I said that right.
Do we do comments? Because I'd like to.
Do you want to do comments first?
like to ask a question.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. We can do comments.
discussion. Yeah.
So before we move on, does any comments for discussion before we vote? Yes, yes.
So, I mean, there's the salvage question, which I'm fine with. I mean, it sounds like, I think most of us are fine with the salvage, but so we've got deaccessioning and then we've got the new project. So that we're saying we're gonna vote just on the deaccessioning and then separately we might vote on a new project. I mean, option 3 is basically deaccession and do a new project, right? So like, I guess what I'm not clear on is like, what are we doing differently now compared to option number 3?
So my understanding, the way that Sarah presented it, and maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, is that if we vote on it as at the same time, that it will delay the project because then it will need to go to city council at the same time as this new recommendation. So is that correct, Sarah? Can you?
So I think that recommendation is more of an attempt to maybe find a compromise between the sort of long-term plan to deaccession them, but also streamline, knowing that we would have to go to city council to approve a new public art project anyways. So if you prefer to do them separately, if you prefer as well that you feel like you still need as a body to determine whether or not a new project fits within the new 6-year work plan, then I would effectively break them up into 2. I would say I would go deaccession and then a second vote on whether or not to consider adding a new project in the future.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? I mean, Sarah, the way that you presented option 3 was that if we did that, then we weren't going to send this to city council and wait until we determine the new project. If we vote on them separately, does that mean we're just going to send this to city council in Q4 no matter what? And then maybe we will or won't have a future project. Is that how it would work?
Correct. Yeah.
So we vote yes on both on this. So if we do this as 2 motions, we vote yes on both. It's going in Q4 no matter what to city council.
Correct. Just the deaccessioning would go to city council in Q4. The new project would TBD on the timeframe.
Got it.
Right, but if we vote together, then it will delay the deaccession.
Correct.
Okay, so.
And I can also clarify, sorry, Chair.
No, that's okay.
There's really no material difference between voting to deaccession now and voting to deaccession or voting to explore a new project and then deaccession at the end of that. I think the difference is, so deaccessioning now will not hold up current construction. And what it means is that the pieces will be off the books. And so future projects, future CIP projects that impact those corners, they'll just be treated as, same demolition, everything like that would be a normal construction. If you decided that you wanted to wait to deaccession them, or you wanted to wait to do, if there's still more work that you're interested in learning in terms of future salvaging, or, really just not concerned right now with the 13 remaining inlays and you want to just keep them for now in place, then I would recommend doing option 3 because that gives us more leeway if they're still within the public art collection, as opposed to taking them off the books effectively now and then sending that recommendation to the city council, if that makes
It
sense.
seems like we're already losing a piece of the artwork, just removing the 8 that we're gonna take out anyways. Plus, we've already lost another corner that was done a couple of years ago. So it seems like we've already lost a part of the heart of the art and the history. So, I mean, that's just my personal thought, but, so Suzanne, might I ask you to restate the motion as you would like to move forward?
I'm not sure I followed what that last little couple sentences that Sarah said there. I guess I would like to see the city, thank you, be efficient. That the work has to be done. I mean, the ADA work has to be done. I would like to just be efficient in doing the work. I don't think there's enough bronze or brass, whatever it is, to mount to any amount of money. So I guess I just have say deaccession the whole lot, but I don't think we should go destroy things that, you know, we're not going to go out of our way and jackhammer ones up that don't need to be taken out at this time. Is that correct? I mean,
Yes, that's correct.
and then, so I would just do that. That's my recommendation. And
Okay.
then part 2, I'll just go ahead and jump in. If you want to somebody makes a second recommendation. I don't want to commit to another project without doing it part of the 6-year plan. It's just what you said. I'm an arts person. I have all these options. I don't want to look at one option without looking at all my options. So I would not be in favor
Of voting on that at this time?
yeah.
Okay, so the motion before the Arts Council, as we have, I think, worked around to it, is that we are just gonna vote on whether or not we are gonna deaccession this. And that is all we were gonna vote on for now. So do you still second that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, thank you. Excellent. Any more discussion before we vote? Okay. Counselors. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't see your.
Don't worry, I was mute before. Yeah, I have a question. I saw the guideline for deaccession of work of Mercer Island. I saw there's some procedure of those, the deaccession procedure, including forming some subcommittee and all these procedure. I just wonder if today we vote for deaccession and then goes to city council, how would that, the procedure will be?
Yeah, so we have not followed that process in practice. We've only, I think, officially deaccessioned one other piece back in 2011. So I think and we are in the process of updating our guidelines. So I do think that process is somewhat outdated. I think the elements in it that are relevant are the criteria for deaccession, which this project or the need to remove these meets at least 2 of those. And then talking to the artists, which we have done. I am happy if the Arts Council is interested in doing more work, engaging a conservator to look at the other inlays. I'm happy to do that as well, if that's something that you all feel is necessary. But for the purposes of this project, the elements that we've followed out of the process suffice.
Thank you, Sarah. So if the counselors can please turn on your microphones, and will city staff please conduct a roll call vote?
Chair, for clarification, the motion is to move that recommend that the street name inlays series be deaccessioned. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Chair.
Item number 1 or option number 1 on Sarah's list.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Becker,
No.
Counselor Gibson,
Approved.
Chair Mitchell,
Approve.
Counselor Rajagopal,
Approve.
Counselor Harrington,
Approve.
Counselor Scone.
Approve.
Oh, sorry. I was like, wait, did we do everybody?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Arts Council. Thank you from the Historical Society. I do want to just preface that the number one thing on our, on our agenda and goals moving forward is have history in our art. And I hope that we can get some feedback and input from you moving forward and collaborate on that would be wonderful. So thank you for coming and speaking tonight.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in? Because I'd like to make a follow-up
Yeah,
motion
yeah.
related to that. I mean, we'll vote however we want. It's fine. But I would like to move to have staff do preliminary investigation into what other options that we could do to as a follow-up project to commemorate the street names.
So Daniel would like to make a motion to have a project focused on commemorating the historical street names of Mercer Island. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, and I'd like to speak to it as well.
I have a second, and I'd like to open up this for discussion. Counselors?
I think it's a real opportunity to work with the chamber, the historical society, and staff. I think staff is, putting it on staff is maybe not it might be more burden on them, but I think it's a real opportunity for us as a community to form some kind of energetic community group that says, where can we do this? Where can we, like, again, is it in Greta Hackett? Is it on other sidewalks? Is it banners? Whatever it is, I don't know what it is. I'm not suggesting ideas, but yeah, let's get a committee and get some energy going. And I don't know how we do that. If staff could help us get that going, and it would draw from a different community group, but definitely historical society members. That would be really exciting. So thank you for bringing that
So
up.
Daniel, did you have a comment
No,
first?
I was just gonna speak to it that, like, I mean, yeah, I don't know what staff capacity is. I understand that we can't just like direct staff to do whatever we want. And so, like, I'm not necessarily saying we should spend a huge amount of time on this. I don't want it to get lost on the radar. If this ultimately ends up on the 6-year plan, that's fine. But as part of deaccessioning, I think it would be helpful to at least, back of the napkin, I think I might have said that before, just like options, like what do the street engineers even say? Because I don't think any of us know. And I think it would be great to connect with these other community groups. If it doesn't work out and we can't do it, we may not be able to do it. I don't think we're committing that we're going to do this project. We should just look and see if there are other opportunities, so that when the time comes to look at that, we know what we can do.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask staff a question on how this motion should be formed. Would it be best to ask for the staff to look into a project, or would it be best to ask for a motion to create a subcommittee within the Arts Council that meets and works with the Historical Society and other members of the Mercer Island community and arts?
I think that I would recommend that staff start with some preliminary work. I do, again, think that this would be a good fit to incorporate in the 6-year work plan. And I do think that, it can be called out as a community-driven art project. I know one of our kind of goals or milestones through the planning process is to really identify what engaging the community more in art making looks like. So this could be a good catalyst for that. So I think that staff have capacity right now to take on the preliminary fact finding, including, I know there were some questions around like, more about the salvaging and everything like that. I'm happy to follow up with that too. Just some of these questions that came up to get a better picture of, what can happen with the future pieces as well, and be able to report back on that.
Excellent. So I think we are gonna go ahead and yes, Ryan Daly,
I would,
Recreation Manager, Ryan Daly.
thank you. The other thing I would recommend kind of jumping on behind Sarah would be to add this into your priorities that we'll be discussing later on tonight.
Mhm.
That even starts to fast track things a little bit quicker into that 2-year time frame. Puts it early. We're already discussing it here pretty openly, so I don't see any issue with that moving forward.
Wonderful. So should we have a motion to add this to our 6-year work plan? Is that what you were saying,
I
Ryan?
think we have a motion on the floor
Right, I'm
currently.
trying to figure out
Okay.
what exactly that motion is. So,
Right. I mean, I'm happy to adjust the motion if staff thinks that it's better to have this as part of the 6-year work plan. I just wanted to call this out specifically so that we make sure that when we get to the work plan or whenever it's appropriate, that we come to it. So like, is that?
Yeah.
Would that be better if if the motion was to make sure that that analysis of options for commemorating the streets are part of the 6-year work plan? Or you tell me. I mean, what, I'm happy to adjust
so
it as needed.
we're looking to staff for guidance on the best way to form the motion.
I would personally, and Sarah, I'd look to your opinion as well. I would make the motion to add it to your priorities for the following biennium as a project.
Okay,
Are we
or
voting on that
development of a
later?
project.
Are we voting on that later at the meeting here or?
we are.
Yes, we're going to be discussing the priorities and work plan for the next biennium later tonight. Yeah, and this would be an objective for the future that would be included in there.
Okay.
Sarah, how do you feel about that?
I think that's fine. I was just gonna say if you didn't want to commit to either priorities or work plan tonight, the direction to staff could be to put together some preliminary options or ideas for what it would look like for developing new project and implementing it, and come back at the October meeting with that information. But I fully support whatever the Arts Council wishes to do. I think that there's two good options, either incorporating it in your 25-26 priorities or waiting until October to see where a new project might fit best.
Okay, so since it's your motion, Daniel, and did you have something, Susan?
I just, again, to come back to, we're doing the 6-year plan. I don't like to pop this in and say, kind of like toss the plan aside and say, this is our number one priority, when I don't know what other priorities there are.
Okay.
So I guess I am interested in if staff and again, the community, like the Historic Society wants to come out and give some visioning to us, I think that would be really helpful. That's my 2 bits.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like we have different options here. I mean, I guess I'm gonna go with what Suzanne is saying here. I mean, I think I agree with that and say add this to make sure that this is incorporated into the 6-year plan with ideas of how we could commemorate the street names.
Is that what you were saying? Okay.
Do you need me to come up with, I know, I'm sorry.
We just need a concrete motion.
I'm clear
no,
what
no.
what staff needs.
Daniel, originally you said you were asking staff and Sarah agreed she had the capacity to look at options to commemorate or to continue this art installation in a different form. So maybe coming back to us with some options and then we could.
So do we even need to vote on it, or can we just ask staff to come back at the October meeting with some more information?
I think that, oh. Was somebody else talking? Sorry.
Sorry,
I was
no,
gonna say, I think if you want to either give a thumbs up, thumbs down to staff, that's to come back in October with options or a better recommendation for how to incorporate this a future project into arts work in the coming biennium, I think that that is enough for us as staff to go forth and
Fabulous.
prosper.
I'm going to ask the Arts Council to give a thumbs up if they would like staff to come back with more information and guidance at the October meeting. Excellent. Our fifth item of regular business.
I'm withdrawing the motion just
Oh,
to
thank
formally
you.
do that.
Thank you. Our fifth item of regular business is Art in Public Places 6-year work plan progress. We welcome back Sarah, CIP project manager.
All right. Well, great discussion. Thank you so much for being so engaged. Thank you to the Historical Society for your input. And I see them taking off tonight, so you will be hearing from me in preparation for that October meeting as well. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so tonight, second item related to public art is to provide a progress update on the 6-year Art in Public Places work plan. Obviously, you all as Arts Council members have been really engaged in the planning process. Much of this update is for the general public. So you may hear a little bit of repeat of information, but we will have a couple items to discuss and hopefully make decisions on tonight. So goals, we're going to recap workshops 1 and 2. I'm going to seek an endorsement of the public art pillars. I'm going to seek your feedback on the planning process and timeline through the rest of the year. I'll provide an update on our summer 24 public art maintenance, and then we'll hopefully be able to confirm the date and time for workshop number 3. Okay. Getting into workshop recap. So we've conducted 2 workshops as part of this planning process, which as a reminder is designed to develop a 6-year plan in connection to our capital program 6-year plan, really thinking about how we will make and prioritize public art decisions over the next several biennium. So for workshop number 1, which took place on May 20th, we focused on current public art conditions. And for each of these workshops, the Arts Council has been completing a little bit of pre-work. So the pre-work for workshop number 1, the Arts Council reviewed many city planning documents that are relevant to public art, including the Arts and Culture Comprehensive Plan, the various park master plans that have public art components, and other city documents that either indirectly or directly relate to public art. And they also explored the city's public art collection and program. Then during the workshop, we conducted an exercise in which board members responded to the 2 prompts you see on your screen. How do you describe the public art collection today? And where do you want to see the public art collection go as a result of the work plan? So then staff used that feedback provided on May 20th to develop exercises and framework for the discussion at workshop number 2 on June 17th. So that focused on what we're calling right now framing statements as well as public art policy. So for the pre-work, staff proposed 4 public art pillars, and the Arts Council drafted statements that would frame how public art projects will be prioritized and developed through the work plan in response. We will talk more about the public art pillars in just a moment. As part of that exercise, board members shared and discussed those framing statements and then also provided initial input on guidelines for acquisition. So for those community members who are watching tonight or watch this later, the Arts Council feedback received at both workshops is included as item 5, exhibit 1 in tonight's agenda packet. It's called Summary of Workshop Feedback if you want to look through all of that. So a big decision tonight I'm hoping we can make is to confirm and endorse the public art pillars. So as a reminder, these pillars will really be the kind of foundation for public art decisions going forward over the life of this work plan. So you can think about them as what are we really going to build on, and what are we really going to point back to with every public art decision, small or large, that we decide to make in the coming years. So staff originally proposed 4 public art pillars that we presented at workshop number 2. So they're on your screen: aesthetic, place, connection, and longevity. And here are kind of the rough definitions or the way that we were proposing to think about each of these. And then we used these to really build on and start drafting those framing statements, which we'll return to at the next workshop, which we'll hopefully schedule tonight. So after our workshop in June, Councilmember Scone reached out and had a couple of proposals in terms of additions to the public art pillars definitions, as well as adding a fifth pillar. So first, she proposed including accessibility and safety in one of the descriptions. So I wanted to put that forth to the Arts Council tonight if you feel that those should be included. Again, the definitions or blurbs attached to each of these pillars are kind of fluid. They can still be massaged later before the final plan is finalized and endorsed by the Arts Council. But I do think that it would be really great to specifically call out accessibility and safety, make sure that those fit in there. In my mind, accessibility could fit best in connection, and I think safety could fit best in longevity. So that's just one thing to consider, but we'll go back to that because I want to talk about the proposed fifth public art pillar first. So in addition to the proposal to add accessibility and safety to the pillars in some way, Councilmember Scone also recommended a fifth public art pillar. So I'm putting that forth for discussion tonight, and it's innovation or originality. So the way she presented this, and this is paraphrasing the full kind of proposal that, or the full write-up that Suzanne had provided to me and other staff and the chair and vice chair, is included in your agenda packet. So this is just kind of my way of summarizing it succinctly, but innovation or originality would be ways in which public art engages and inspires, introducing new ideas, sparking dialogue, and provoking feeling. So let's see, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. I think I'm going to stop sharing and just open it up for discussion right now. And if we need to go back to the slides to confirm the language, we can. But really what I'm looking for out of the public art pillars from the Arts Council tonight is one, whether or not you endorse including accessibility and safety somewhere within the pillars, the existing pillars. And if you have ideas about where they would fit, that would be great, but not necessary tonight. Two, are you interested in adding a fifth pillar that aligns with what Councilmember Scone has proposed? And then three, after we kind of discuss and give input about that, voting to endorse either 4 or 5 public art pillars, whatever you all decide, that will be included in the final plan. And I'm asking for this milestone now because, you know, this whole planning process, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later tonight, is really about like building on things. So I really see these pillars as kind of like the first major milestone, and not to say it can't change, not to say that it can't evolve, or, you know, maybe we don't even include the pillars in the final plan, but I want you all to have kind of a consensus and a commitment to that first foundation, and then we'll continue building on that as this planning process goes on. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Chair, right now to see if there's any discussion and potential motion to endorse the public art pillars.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I actually ask you to put the slide back up with the 5 different pillars on there and ask a clarifying question myself? Perfect. So just to clarify on the innovation and originality, does that not already kind of fit under connection?
I would say, Councilmember Scone, do you want to talk a little bit about what you were going for with this recommendation?
Let me just read connection again. All the ways public art encourages connection both to artwork itself and to/within the Mercer Island community. I think it does kind of so my statement could maybe be morphed into aesthetics and connection if we wanted to just keep with the four.
Uh-huh.
But I guess when I circled back to it after our last meeting, I felt like we were doing a park bench. It's like, wow, we're gonna, have the place, I just didn't feel like we were talking about art, what that inspires and, that you want to go home and tell you, come and see this, you got to see this, so it didn't feel very, as I said, inspirational to me. It didn't seem, so those were things that came to my mind. So,
Absolutely. I just wanted to kind of clarify.
but I do think they could be, I think aesthetics could be beefed a little and connection could be beefed a little, and then we could get rid of 5. But if the group likes 5, just.
I
that's a
would actually
possibility.
love to see the inspiring, introducing new ideas, sparking dialogue under connection, because I think that that is what art does, right? It's how it connects us. And so I would personally love to see it under there, because I think that that's an important part of the connection. And I'm also totally fine with adding in the safety and what was the other part? The
Safety and accessibility.
accessibility and safety, which sort of go hand in
And I
hand.
have
But
one more to throw in.
Yeah.
Just to confuse everybody. And it's functionality. And it's like the Dragon Park Dragon. It's got a function. The bollards at the dock, they actually have a function. They keep people from going over the edge. We have some other, I can think of a number of them. I'm sure you can too, where either wayfinding or lighting. I'm so excited to do some lighting throughout the city.
Right.
That's artistic lighting has advanced so much in the last 5-10 years with the LED lights and solar lights and, and that's an opportunity for public safety. So I guess I would add, if we could get functionality in there somewhere that says,
Yeah.
we have this wonderful light umbrella, but it not only provides rain coverage, sun coverage, light, for safety, it does everything. And it's this amazing light or art installation. So
yeah, I think we touched on that at the first planning meeting as well, talking about,
so I don't know if we have,
hands-on and
do you have
functionality.
that?
I don't know where that would go under.
Yeah, functionality,
Maybe
maybe
This isn't on.
place or longevity.
Like place is like, why is it in that place? Like, why did we
Okay.
put it there? And we put the dragon there because
It's a
it's at the park.
Prince Park.
that makes sense.
Like, there's like
yeah.
it's intentional why it's at that specific location, or wayfinding. It's there because,
Right. Or the ballards so you don't fall in the water.
right.
So Sarah, are you looking for just sort of a thumbs up on this, on including those things with the pillars before we vote on the pillars, or does anyone else have any other thoughts, comments?
So I can jump in really quickly based on how this conversation is going. I think what I'm looking for is an endorsement or confirmation that confirmation of the high level pillars, those either 4 or 5: aesthetic, place, connection, longevity, originality, functionality. We could add that in. And so kind of a commitment to the high level pillars you want to use. And then I am taking, I'm hearing a little bit that there's probably still a little more opportunity to adjust these definitions or blurbs or whatever. So I think what I would do is get an endorsement of the pillars themselves. And then when we meet again at the next workshop, I'd give you an updated version of the blurbs kind of thing. And we can continue to evolve that over time. I think it's the general understanding about what each of these pillars means and what the intent is. And the commitment there, I think, is what I'm looking for tonight.
Okay, excellent. And then one other thing I was going to add after all of the conversation we had in the previous agenda item is that we don't have history on there anywhere. So we might want to add that into the connection or the longevity part as well.
If I may,
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so we had a discussion about, and it's in the 25-26 work plan priorities. We discussed diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those words should appear someplace in these pillars. And I think maybe the most appropriate place would just giving a suggestion about the connection language. So we could say like how public art encourages connection, comma, diversity, comma, inclusion, and accessibility, both to the artwork itself and to within the Mercer Island community. So that includes the accessibility piece, just one word, just a couple words, but they're very meaningful to people. The word diversity is meaningful to many people in our community. And so it'd be great, since especially because we've already spent a fair amount of time talking about it, that we can get those words somehow into the pillars, the actual words.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think that what we are all in agreement that we like the actual pillars. We just want to flesh out the language underneath and the definitions a little bit more. I think that's what I'm hearing from the Arts Council. So, and then the only other thing, Sarah, for us to make a motion on this, are you asking us to go ahead and do the 4 pillars, or to go ahead and do the 5? And that's also kind of a Suzanne question, since you're the one who proposed it. Suzanne, do you feel comfortable moving some of that, the wording into the other 4 elements, or would you like to have 5?
No, it's fine moving them into, I just trying to figure out where to put it. Because now connection is now bigger, so
So it sounds like connection's a big, a big piece of what people are looking
and
for.
that history could also be in connection too,
Yes.
because that connects you to your past. So now connection is getting bigger and bigger. So maybe innovation and originality, because it is art and it's unique, maybe I mean, I'm okay with 5, but it's up, whatever
Okay.
you guys think.
I'm okay with 5 too. I like the wording of 5.
I don't want to take away from connection by diluting it too much.
Daniel?
I'm gonna sound like a contrarian tonight, but I mean, I personally go with 4. I mean, I definitely agree, though, that we should, if we do that, we should figure out how to get these other items into there, like the inspiration, like we're saying, like the inspiration's got to be in there with connection, if that's the case. And then aesthetic, I think, could be beefed up in terms of like the actual art element, and like it needs to be like we're looking for things that are unique. I mean, those 2, I think, are, there's lots of art elements. If we go with the 4, I agree. I think we should get more of those elements in there. If we can't get
Yeah.
them in, and it's like, it's just impossible to wordsmith this, or it's way too much, then, you know, if the 5 is our best option, then that would be fine also. But personally, I would prefer that we go with the 4 and get them into there.
I actually agree with you, Daniel. I lean more towards 4, and I love the innovation, originality thoughts that Suzanne has, and I think that they could fit in other places like aesthetic and connection, and even the other one you mentioned about place. So I think that we all like the pillars. So may I have a motion to endorse the public art pillars and provide input on planning process and timeline?
So this motion would just be about the public art pillars. We have a couple more slides about planning
sorry.
process and timeline. No, it's all
I
good.
was just kidding.
Just
We're
wanted
just
to clarify.
the public art pillars.
So you're motioning for the 4.
I'm asking someone to make a motion.
I motion that we stick with the original 4 and continue to wordsmith the descriptions underneath.
Excellent. I have a motion to endorse the 4 public art pillars while including the description from the 5th interspersed with the other 4. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Jonathan's comments as well.
And yes, all the things we've
All the
discussed tonight.
wordsmithing,
All
right,
the
we're
all the
gonna include in
wordsmithing
the 4.
Okay.
within
I
the 4.
second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Counselors, does anyone have any additional comments for discussion before we vote? Wonderful. City staff, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Counselor Gibson,
Approve.
Counselor Rajagopal, sorry.
Approve.
Thank you. Counselor Scone,
Approve.
Chair Mitchell,
Approve.
Vice Chair Becker,
Approve.
Counselor Harrington.
Approve.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now I'm going to hand it back to Sarah to continue. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, keep it moving. So, oh, come on. Just a second. Completion. Why aren't you advancing? After all these years, still never works when you want it to. Just a second. There we go. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to engage you all in on tonight in connection to the work plan effort is just we're kind of a few months into this process. I've outlined a timeline for kind of getting us through the end of the year. I do anticipate that we will continue some work into 2025, more of the kind of meatier stuff like public art policy work and looking at some evaluation elements for the plan. But I wanted to take this opportunity to just hear from you all, and if nobody has feedback that they're itching to give tonight, you can also contact me via email and give me feedback, but just how you feel like this planning process is going so far, how you feel just about kind of the direction we're heading. Now that we've confirmed the public art pillars, the next step will be to finalize those framing statements. And then from there, we'll really kind of be fast tracking in a lot of ways to build out other parts of the plan. So I wanted to turn it over to you all to see if you have just general comments or feedback for how the process could be improved. And then I will jump in a little bit to look at timeline for the rest of the year.
I have a comment on timeline, but I can hold that until we talk about it if you want, or I can throw it out there right now. Which would you prefer, Sarah?
Just hold it. See if anybody has.
I will wait. So that being said, does anyone have any thoughts or ideas about the process so far? How's it going? Has everyone been happy? I think we've had really productive meetings. And I really appreciate the way that you're, Sarah, that you're putting all of our ideas together, and the way that you laid it out is really helpful. So I think we've had very successful planning meetings and look forward to continuing. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's been great. And I think, you know, the pre-work has helped everyone get prepared. So I appreciate all the work that Sarah's done to kind of just get us prepared for a productive discussion.
Yeah. So I think that it's been helpful to have that homework ahead of time, and it saves us time in the actual meeting that we can kind of flush things out ahead of time and then come together and share our ideas. So I think as far as the process so far, it's been good. Any other thoughts, concerns? I cannot see Irene, so I don't know if she has any thoughts. So just.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very, I also really appreciate staff's all the additional information. That's very helpful. I just wonder, because we have motion to I'm still thinking of that, the inlays, that project. We voted to deassessing this, but we will discuss about the new project, right? Because that's also very important.
Yes, definitely. And I'm committed to coming back in October to give some more input. And then I do think it would either be incorporated into the work plan, because October is around the time when we will start talking about specific project opportunities. So really looking at what's ahead on the CIP, taking a lot of these conversations that aren't necessarily CIP related and starting to plot how they all fit in. So yeah, definitely will incorporate it.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah?
Okay. Look at that. I'm trying. I apologize to all my recreation colleagues who are in the room tonight that all of my items are taking such a long time. So thank you for your patience. We're almost done. So I included this planning schedule in your packet. I propose adding 3 more workshops or special hybrid meetings. You've probably noticed that's how we advertise them to the community. Outlined pretty specifically topics we'll discuss and specific milestones. As I already noted, it will likely carry over into 2025 in this work, and that's totally fine. If there are, I know the last 3 months of the year, we get into holiday season, and it is really challenging to add more meetings onto those really busy times. So if I'm open to feedback. I think tonight, the one thing we really want to confirm is the next workshop, which since we council boards and staff take the month of August off usually from public meetings. So I'm not proposing adding a meeting in August. That means we would come back in September. September 16th keeps us on that like 3rd Monday schedule we've been on so far. Not married to that, of course, but I just wanted to see what you all think about timeline and confirm whether September 16th will work.
So I love your first 3 meetings, but I would request that we do not have a meeting in December because I literally I looked on my calendar and I have a Messiah rehearsal that night. I can't come. So I would propose that if we need that additional hybrid meeting, that we either attach it to another, maybe the regular meeting in October, or we do a January meeting if that works for you. But I love everything except your December meeting. That's my opinion. Anybody else on scheduling?
Just a question. So September 16th is a Monday, but October 16th is a Wednesday. Is that?
Because that's our regular meeting.
Okay. Okay. And then November 18th.
Is also a Monday, I
Okay.
believe, isn't it?
Sounds good.
I think so. Yeah. Except for the October. Yeah. So that is, I think everybody is okay with the schedule. I'm requesting no December. Do I have support in that? If you guys can all be here, I mean, I can just not be here, but I cannot do December. Does not work for me. Can I get just a thumbs up, thumbs down on the December meeting if people would come or be available? Thumbs up if you're available, thumbs down if you're not available.
Available.
Okay.
Let's keep it as an option in case we need it.
Yeah. And again, we can adjust totally fine if we need it.
But
Okay.
as far as the September 16th meeting, can I get a thumbs up if everybody can make that?
Great. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. Well, just 2 final things then. Thank you all for bearing with me tonight. So I'm going to share my screen one last time. Okay, so I'll be back. We're going to meet on September 16th. That's a Monday, 5:30 p.m. We'll be in person. I will get you hopefully pre-work before the end of this month. So you all have plenty of time to work on it. And yeah, hopefully that'll be a great discussion. In particular, we'll be looking at all the framing statements that you all discussed in June. We're working on compiling them and figuring out, what could be sort of based on all of your feedback, the draft statements that we'll put forward. So I will get that all to you hopefully by the end of July. So stay tuned to your city emails. And the last couple of things I just wanted to share in the public art world, update on public art maintenance that's happening this summer. So restoration of the mosaic murals at Luther Burbank begins tomorrow. So the 2 murals that you see on your screen, the 4x6 murals that are installed within the play area are first up for restoration. So we will have messaging out, we'll have some signage out, and some messaging I think has already gone out on social media as well. We do have to close part of the play area while the restoration work is in process. It'll only be about a week, and it's really to both give the artist space to work and while the pieces are curing after she's made the repairs, we kind of need to keep people away from them. So there will be cones and signage set up, and hopefully it will all go quickly and easily this week and next week, and we can reopen that side of the play area. Also, still underway, I'm working through the contracting to restore Totem, which is the piece at Roanoke Park by Bernard Hosey. I'm hoping that that work will begin in late August, and our general public art maintenance is also already underway. So you may, as you're out in the parks this summer, see Amber and others from Alloy Arts working on pieces. If you see her or someone from her team, just say hello and thank you for helping to maintain our public art collection. So final thing, just to look ahead. Okay, we've confirmed September 16th. Great, thank you. We will review the draft framing statements. We'll continue the public art policy discussion. And I wanted you all to know that I will be at Mostly Music in the Park on August 1st. I will have coloring sheets, a map of all of our public art installations and other materials to highlight the public art collections. It's just a way to get out there and share more with the community about what exists and a little bit about the planning process we're doing right now. If you're at the concert, stop by and say hello, pick up a coloring sheet. You can see an illustration of one of the illustrations that artist Marcia Rollinger, who also did the medallions, she created for us. This is an illustration of Gateway Figures, which is installed at the Greta Hackett Outdoor Sculpture Gallery. So stop by and say hi. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for the great discussion and engagement tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for all of your hard work and your, help with us figuring out these priorities for the work plan. Could you follow up and send an email about the August 1st Mostly Music in the Park? That would be super helpful.
Yep.
Thank you. And so our sixth item of regular business is the 2023 Recreation Division Annual Report. And for that, we're going to welcome Ryan Daly, Recreation Manager.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Ryan Daly, Recreation Manager. I do want to offer, you guys have been going at it strong for 2 hours. If you'd like to pause and take a quick break, I'm good with that, or we can keep rolling. Completely up to you. Hey, let's, I'm sure that was recorded. It's like, Ryan, get going. Let's go. All right. I mean, it's probably only like 50 to 60 slides, but I can go quick. No, it'll be nice and quick. If I can share my screen.
Do the staff want a break by any chance?
Thank you for that, council member. But I think we're good. That was really nice. All right. Okay, so I will be presenting the annual report here, and I'll be assisted by Katie Herzog and Alex Lee. But I keep getting all these things popping up. There we go. So real quick, I'm going to talk a little bit about who is the recreation. I know we have a lot. First of all, who is the Recreation Division? We're a lot of fun, obviously. But we're going to talk a little bit about what we did in this past year and then provide a little bit of a 2024 mid-year update as well. So who we are, we have 18 full-time and part-time staff members who strive to deliver life-improving recreation services. We focus on creating access and opportunities to community members, connect community members and neighborhoods together, and we support a variety of community organizations. And honestly, the reason we provide this report regular or annually is to consistently seek improvement. You'll hear us middle of events and things like that asking, hey, what can we do better? What programs can we expand? What can we offer? And those are really valuable inputs that help us to meet that objective. So we made some slight changes from 2022. One thing with the Recreation Division is we're constantly adapting. And so Katie Herzog previously was a recreation coordinator and was promoted to supervisor. We converted one of our other recreation coordinators to an analyst position. And then we moved a recreation specialist to support our boards and commissions, Raven, and it's great to have her in that role. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our administration area. That includes myself, portions of Katie and Alex, and then also Raven. So what did we do this year? The administration functional area really is responsible for the development of the budget, prioritizing resources, developing policies, reviewing the work plan, developing the work plan, and then supporting also citywide emergencies that tend to pop up from time to time here on Mercer Island. Some of the key outcomes for us as staff over the last year was development of the 2022 annual report, extending and revising the pay-by-phone agreement for the boat launch. That's how boat launch passes are sold. We expanded the use of a Civic Optimized software that allows us to take in our registration bookings much more efficiently. We expanded we implemented MICC room availability viewing online. So again, with that rental outlook, looking for those available spaces here in this facility. We supported a lot of the work on the bike skills area. We restructured, as I mentioned earlier, our division resources to kind of meet emergent needs. One of the things you'll hear us talking about is the facility rentals and the usage of this building exceeded our expectations last year. And so we ended up quite a bit busier than we were maybe anticipating. We had to make some adjustments to be able to accommodate that. We developed and implemented the Groveland Park capacity limit, which was a special rule for Seafair at Groveland Beach, which limited the number of patrons that could enter that park for safety reasons. And then we provided ongoing emergency support for City Hall, moving many of those functions into this facility. So talking about with our boards and commissions, these also fall within the administrative functional area. The Parks and Recreation Commission approved the 30% design for the bike skills area. They approved the 30% design for the Aubrey Davis Trail Safety Improvement Project, which is kicking off later on this month. They recommended the draft City Council park area naming policy, which was adopted by City Council. Recommended to the City Council the preferred court configurations for the Luther Burbank sports courts, endorsed the new P-patch guidelines, which is up here behind the community center, adopted revised PRC bylaws, completed the always fun parliamentary procedure training, and of course attended the bike skills area opening. And then the Arts Council, you guys were at work as well, endorsing the 23-24 Arts and Culture Work Plan, approving the RFQ and process for Luther Burbank waterfront improvements, approving the artists for those for the artwork for that location, approving the events committee to move forward with choosing the summer celebration shirt last year, and then recommending the Art in Public Places project to the City Council. So now I'm going to pass it off to Alex Lee to talk a little bit about the community center.
Perfect. Thank you. So you can kind of see our staffing structure there with myself as the facility supervisor, our business analysts. We also have recreation assistants. Those are the ones, the people you'll see at our front desk, along with our recreation aides. And so we have, we have a ton of staff in the building here that are always here to assist in whoever comes into the building. Thank you. Perfect. So what we did, so we returned to our pre-pandemic rental volumes, as Ryan said, that we far exceeded our, what we were expecting. So we had almost 1,800 bookings last year, 6,000 total hours, just a little over 6,000. Almost 15.5 participants in our drop-in sports, which is a fantastic number. And then just over almost 5,400 visitors in our fitness center. So a lot of people just stopping in to just use our general programs here at the community center. And then one thing I want to highlight as well is if you look at the graph there on the right, you can see that the blue is just those drop-in programs that the community takes in part of. And then we have our private events and rentals in the green there, which takes up, a portion of what we do, but not not a great big portion, which I think is sometimes the misconception that the community center has, is that we're only here for rentals at times, which is not the case based off the numbers and the participation that we're seeing. And you can really see that in the gym space as well, where our drop-in sports are. So on this graph there, we have in all the blue, those are all of just the drop-in programs that are mainly visited and attended by our community. And then we have our regular gym rentals and kind of the small gray space there. So vast majority of what we do here in the gym is for the community, and providing those opportunities for them to use that space. And what we did, so we expanded after hours access. So we really looked at, taking those gym rentals in particular from that last slide. They are coming in later in the evening, 6 to 10 p.m. usually during the week. We utilize partnerships to increase our offerings. We supported the YFS breakfast and Rotary and Chamber events. We had sister city events in here as well. MyVol still is in the building, and we support them as well in some of their shows. We adapted operations to citywide functions, obviously, with the city closure hall. And then we provided cooling and warming center functions while maintaining preparation as an emergency shelter. And I will hand it off to Katie.
All right, so then I get to talk about our programs and events side. As you can see under myself, there's a recreation coordinator and recreation specialist. Our coordinator is primarily responsible for outdoor rental spaces. So that staff member coordinates and books out all of the athletic fields, picnic rentals, and special event permitting. And our recreation specialist assists then with programs and events. So we offered 15 different summer camp options, which served approximately 1,600 registrations. We permitted 39 third-party or private rentals in the park. We sponsored 5 events through the Special Event Sponsorship Program and provided P-Patch space for 48 users. Here is a list of our events that we've done. City coordinated events are just that, those that are housed under our recreation division. We plan, promote, implement, staff. We do everything for those city coordinated events that, of course, we talk about a lot in your meetings when we give our department reports, everything from summer celebration to the tree lighting, island lanterns, Pride in the Park, Juneteenth. And then we have partnered events. So these are events that we team up with a different organization to put on, where we may provide the space and marketing, and the other organization takes on another piece of those events. And our sponsored special events are where those fall under our sponsorship permit program, where organizations can apply for a fee waiver a lot of times in the park, and we help them access their permit to host their own event on city park land. Our outdoor facility rentals included 143 picnic rentals. We have 3 different park locations where picnic rentals are reserved. We had 20 special event permits issued, all of those being private events. And our athletic field rentals included 7,549 hours or 2,562 bookings. And that, of course, included when our South Mercer playfields were unavailable for the turf, full turf fields that went in that are now available.
See, I told you guys, we're cruising right through. Here we're already gonna preview 2024. Things have gone really, really well this year. One of the challenges we've had in the past is having vacant staff positions. This year, 2024 was the first time in a really long time we've started the year with all our positions full. That's a huge help for us to just jump in and start delivering services, specifically here at the community center, and then also with all of our different special events and usages and programs that go along with that. Staff in the facility, we've we've been really focused on supporting the city hall closure. That's been something that's been integrated into our operations here at the community center on a daily basis. This room is working out really well. We're benefiting from that here as staff here at the community center, being able to utilize this as a staff meeting room as well as the rest of the staff citywide. We recently added a 1.0 recreation assistant, a temporary staff position to help backfill or to meet some of those extended hours rentals, actually meet all of them. We needed basically another full-time level employee to come in and be able to manage the level of facility hours that we're offering. So that's been a huge help to us. And then our rentals and drop-ins are actually on pace to exceed 2023. 2023 was a huge year for us. 2024 is looking even bigger. So we're in a great situation there. Huge positive also has been the Parks and Rec Commission, Open Space Conservancy Trust, and you, the Arts Council, meeting in person here in this room. Summer camp registrations, I got to bring something down a little bit here. Our summer camp registrations have been a bit low. That's been sort of a trend across different areas, different organizations as well. I have some theories to why that's happening. I think there's a lot of offerings elsewhere. Saturated market, small island. We're focused on our resident needs, maybe not so much the regional needs. And so that's a little bit of I think a sign of some changes that we'll have here in the next biennium. Senior age opportunities, we've been dedicating a number of resources toward OSHER programming. That's a senior educational program. Our community coffee hours here at the community center, senior lunches, and then a musical fitness and also a senior golf program that's occurring. And staff are in the process of implementing and expanding new partnerships with Friendship Circle, which is a specialized recreation program that operates out of here at the community center, as well as the Mercer Island Chinese Association and a number of school-based groups as well. And then just throwing this in there, last week, mostly music, Thursday was awesome. It was crowded. It was probably the biggest crowd I've seen out there. Great band. We have a stage now. So we've really elevated that event, and I think that's really paying off, and the community is really enjoying it. And then, of course, Summer Celebration was an outstanding event this last weekend. Huge crowds. Down at the fireworks was probably more than I've ever seen down there. It was really an exceptional event, and we're already planning for next year. So I'm happy to take any questions the Arts Council may have and go from there.
Thank you so much, Ryan Daly, Alex Lee, and Katie Herzog for your report to us. That's all great. That was interesting about your the summer camp registration and why you think that's happening. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes from here. Any questions or comments for the good of the order from the rest of the Arts Council?
I just had one quick question. The pickleball courts, when are they supposed to be completed?
That's an excellent question. We are targeting the end of August. So, yep, that's the project completion date. We had a meeting today on it. We're preparing for the asphalt. So we've done the groundwork, checking the sub base, making sure everything's good before we really commit to putting that asphalt down. One of the things that was needing to occur that kind of pushed things off was flooding the court, they call it. So we dump a whole lot of water on the courts, which is not a good idea on Mercer Island today. So we needed to wait on that. And so what that does is you watch for the areas that dry first, and that shows you where the humps are in the court, so that when we do lay that pavement, it'll be perfectly flat and drain the correct direction and whatnot. So on track for now, and we'll keep going. We've had a great construction window weather-wise as we've gone forward.
What is the date of the tournament? And I hear there's some social activities associated or trying to be drummed up around that.
Yeah, so Rotary is hosting a pickleball tournament. Alex, date?
Yeah, it's the 23rd through the 25th.
Yep.
That
So
Friday through
the courts
Sunday.
be done by then.
That's the plan.
Okay.
If yeah, I mean, we're pushing for as early as possible, to be
Okay.
honest.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you again for that. Our seventh item of regular business is the 2025-2026 Arts and Culture Work Plan Priorities. And for that, we're going to welcome back Katie Herzog, Recreation Supervisor and our staff liaison.
Thank you so much. All right, we've made it to our last item. So tonight we're seeking the Arts Council endorsement on the 25-26 City Arts and Culture Work Plan Priorities, which will inform the development of the city's Arts and Culture Work Plan objectives. So at our April 17th meeting, the Arts Council reviewed and discussed a draft set of priorities, and tonight we've returned with a revised set reflective of that discussion. The revisions include inserting diversity, equity, and inclusion, broadening reference to sustainability, prioritizing performing arts, and updating the list of major projects for completion informed by current work. So if you so move to endorse tonight, we will then request input towards those desired outcomes, which will be reflective of the endorsed priorities. Staff will then utilize this input in developing objectives and will return in October for review and endorsement for the full work plan. So I am going to share my screen just to put up here we go. Just to put up the priorities. There we go. Oh, we got to run through this real quick. We already saw this, sorry. It's at the very end. Okay, here we are. So these, of course, were all in your packet, but these are the edited versions of the priorities. Looking for endorsement tonight or any comments or edits that you may have. Happy to take those comments now. I don't think I need to read them out aloud,
No,
but I certainly can.
Thank you so much, Katie. Counselors, may I have a motion to endorse the 2025-2026 Arts and Culture Work Plan priorities?
So moved.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a motion by Daniel Becker and a second by Jonathan Harrington. Before we move to vote, does anyone have any comments for discussion? Excellent. Counselors, please turn on your microphones, and will city staff please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Mitchell,
Approve.
Councillor Harrington,
Approved.
Councillor Rajagopal,
Approve.
Councillor
Approve.
Shipp,
Approve.
Councillor Gibson,
Approve.
Vice Chair Becker.
Approve.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and the motion passes. And now we're going to move on to other business and absences. Counselors, does anyone have a planned absence for our next regular Arts Council meeting on October 16th to report? Fabulous. There being no other business to come before the Arts Council, the time is now 7:53 and the meeting is adjourned. As a reminder to the counselors, please stay seated until city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and thank you for joining us.